Well, friends, it's certainly been a heck of a few weeks here for Babylon 5 fans. We got a lot of news, mostly pertaining to the same thing trickling out over the past few weeks, and it all comes after quite a long hiatus from hearing anything. Sure, there was those rumors going around that there was going to be a Babylon 5 reboot that was taking place at the CW. It seemed like that was locked in, then suddenly the rug was pulled out from under it, which, based on everything that's happened at the CW and Warner Brothers, is probably a godsend and a bit of a blessing. JMS decided to go ahead and let us know all this information pretty much from his Twitter on his own about the animated film that is coming out very, very soon. It's complete, it's ready. We got news, we got images, we got a slight leak yesterday, and then today, finally, after all this anticipation, all this build-up, we get the official trailer. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video going over the images, I had some concerns, and I still have these similar concerns after watching the trailer. Mostly that I find the animation style to be beautiful and wonderful when it's rendering things like spacecraft, the space station itself, some of the more alien and unique looking creatures in the universe, such as the Shadows or something like that, where I personally think that it's going to have a failing or a little bit of a fall down, is when we're dealing with the human or humanoid-istic aliens in the show. Their facial expressions, their features, some of the characters, in my opinion, it's a bit hard to even tell which character they're supposed to be, but I'm going to play just the intro with a little bit of the sound there, but then I'm going to go through the rest of it without any audio because I don't know how this is going to work out for me as far as copyrights.
I was there.
At the dawn of the third age.
Oh, little Londo there. Okay, so that's basically what we saw in the teaser. All my feelings are pretty much the same as far as the animation style. However, I will admit that based on seeing these things in action, in motion, I'm pretty sure that once this kicks into gear, I'm not going to be paying attention to any of that. So basically, is it the best case scenario as far as my personal taste with animation? No. Do I think it's going to look grand and epic in scope as far as the grand opera of space goes? Yes, it's just those little interpersonal characteristics that are between characters, and I think that's going to fade into the background after watching the action in the trailer. So I'm going to skip through a little bit here. It appears that what they're doing here is not going with the proposed idea some people had that this was actually all going to be taking place during the time period where Sheridan was already bouncing around between unstuck periods of time during War Without End, or whatever that episode was called, where he was already unstuck in time. So a lot of people speculated this was going to pick up during parallel adventures at that time instead of going forward and bridging that gap between the end of season 5 and where we know things end 20 years later in the finale. It looks like this is actually going to be set a couple of years after the finale, where Sheridan is attending some sort of starting of a project on Minbar or Minbari related, and it appears to be some sort of tachyon related experiment that's utilizing tachyon power, and this is going to reactivate his latent time hopping abilities and send him, interestingly enough, sliding throughout various alternate paths, alternate universes, alternate timelines. And this is why I thought it could have been interesting to set it prior to what we've already seen in the show, because that could help influence how determined he was when he came back at the end of that series. Instead, this is actually set after the events we've already witnessed and seen. Will this involve the telepath war? I don't know, because there's very, very little information. There's a small snippet of Lita in here. I didn't see anything that indicated Bester, so I'm not entirely sure if this is going to wrap up that storyline whatsoever, or if this is just going to be a nice, fun side mission with interesting versions of the characters we've come to know and love. Obviously, a lot of them have been recast. I'm going to skip through a little bit here because there are some things I did want to touch on in here. All right, this is when the accident goes down, and I'm not entirely sure what this is called, but the little breathing apparatus, the breathing masks that they used in Babylon 5. I always liked those because they were so of our technology, I guess you could say. They're not so advanced and futuristic looking. They are very much indicative of something that we as humanity would create. And I always liked that about Babylon 5. They were kind of an extension of who we were as a people at the time. Now we see here Sheridan jumping through different points. I believe this one here is Sheridan meeting his father on Earth. I know I'm talking a lot here. It kind of looks like that time bubble from Terminator, but they keep mentioning it like sliding, so it's kind of a culmination of a couple different ideas. I believe that's Dr. Franklin there, but it's a little hard to tell. He was more of a doctor and less of a temporal scientist, so whatever, maybe there is a tachyon buildup in Sheridan himself, and that's why he's there. His medical expertise could help remove the charged cells or something. That's really a cool looking scene, though. Scenes like this work well with the animation style. This is a little weird. His little hurtling through the wormhole, which is very reminiscent, to me at least, of how they travel the Rainbow Bridge in the Thor movies, the MCU. That reminds me very much of that. And this leads me into the one additional kind of issue I have with this. So, for as grand, sweeping, and epic as Babylon 5 always was, it always had a more grounded in reality sort of sense to it. Yes, there was a couple of times where they bounced through time, but that was in service to the story. This seems to be going balls to the wall and just throwing out grandiose sci-fi ideas that weren't really present necessarily in Babylon 5, but are very present in other shows. So it seems to be extending itself a bit further out into the science fantasy realm as Babylon 5 used to be. I'm not necessarily against that because utilizing computer-generated animation is a lot more easy to do that, and they've already wrapped up the more grounded and grand sweeping epic they've already wanted to tell. So a little diversion is always great. It just seems a little bit over the top compared to what Babylon 5 used to involve. So he's trying to get back home. We see this invasion fleet of very, very reminiscent to me of the aliens from Starship Troopers, but I believe this is probably going to be maybe Mars during that uncovering of the crashed shadow ship on there, except maybe they're not invisible anymore. I don't know. I'm just guessing this might be a staging for the invasion of Earth or something, because we're seeing here a lot of alternate possibilities, it appears. This here is a universe where we lost the Shadow War, and if this is similar to another scene we see later, they're going to send the moon crashing into Earth. So remember, even though we won the Shadow War, Earth was kind of indirectly working with the Shadows, so they wouldn't necessarily have been defeated, even though the Alliance was defeated, because they were already broken away from Babylon 5 and the alliance of other races at this time. So humanity would have survived, Earth would have survived for the short term. I can't imagine they would have survived for the long haul, so this is probably after a short period of rest before it's, you know what, you're screwed. You helped us out, but bye-bye, Earth. That's my guess of what's going on here. We get a cool shot of Londo, and you can see here, maybe you can't, but to me, this is what I'm talking about with the faces not looking quite right. They're a little simplified, they're a little less expressive than I would like, so I don't know. Again, I'm going to get over that. This is very reminiscent of a scene we've seen before, so whether or not this is the past or an alternate timeline where things resolved differently from this event, I'm not sure, but this is pretty well rendered, pretty well animated. If you look at the background, the fire, you got the little console lights up there. That's the stuff I love. The uniform looks pretty good. I think this is Sheridan and Sinclair, although this, I'm not sure, this looks like it might be a younger version of Sinclair, younger than we ever met him, although the lighting kind of makes it hard to see his hair color there. Oops, a little too far. Babylon 5, we got some cool effects here. This is very, I'm not sure what this reminds me of. Oh, I think it reminds me of Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, which is a very underrated storyline in a relatively interesting movie, even though it's completely nothing like the games. Then we got some cool action shots. The only Lita moment I think we have in the entire trailer, so it's nice to see her back. We get to see some nice boom boom explosions, another BA looking Ivanova here. Then we got the moon coming into Earth. Some more crackling temporal energy, more explosions. Babylon 5 looks basically the most gorgeous we've seen it ever. Like, even when they went all out in Season 5 and a couple of the movies and rendered it a lot better, I think it looks the best we've ever seen it here. At the end here, a little more Zathras and a beautiful Babylon 5 there. And then at the end, a kind of strange-looking Jakar, and he sounds a bit off, too. Now, that may be, of course, we are recasting because the actor is dead, but...
Friend.
I don't know, that just sounded a little odd to me. But what are your thoughts on this? I know I rambled a lot about a tiny trailer. I still think that the movie is going to be fantastic. I don't expect it to be the start of anything. I don't expect it to be the end of anything. I expect it to be a nice, well-thought character journey, a nice celebration of characters that we used to love in the show, some of them who have passed away, so maybe we'll get some nice tributes and send-offs to them. And if anything, it'll be one last jaunt into the Babylon 5 universe. If things go well, maybe it'll be a proof of concept enough to get that reimagined reboot, whatever you want to call it, requel, off the ground, and we'll get some more live-action Babylon 5 soon. Leave all your thoughts down below, like, share, subscribe, throw me some money on coffee or whatever. But until next time,
But we're all aliens to one another. Flawed, impure,